They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine came with federal handcuffs and an 8-year prison sentence. My name is Cordelia Thatch. Let's dive in.
It was a Thursday morning in March when I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, my throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass, and when I checked my temperature, the thermometer read 103.2. I worked as a senior data analyst at Meridian Tech Solutions, a mid-sized software company in Denver. I'd been there for 6 years, never missed a deadline, and had only called in sick twice in all that time. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and texted my manager, Dalton Grieves. Even typing hurt. "Dalton, I'm really sick. Fever of 103. Need to take a sick day. We'll check emails if I'm feeling better later." I crawled back into bed, took some medicine and tried to sleep. About an hour later my phone started buzzing. It was Dalton calling, then texting, then calling again. "Cordelia, we have the Silverman presentation today. You need to be here. This is unacceptable. Call me back immediately." I tried to ignore it, but the messages kept coming. Finally, around noon, I called him back, my voice barely above a whisper. "Dalton, I can barely speak. I'm really sick." "Cordelia, I don't care if you're feeling under the weather. The Silverman presentation is in 3 hours, and you're the only one who knows the analytics inside and out. Get dressed and get here." "I have a 103-degree fever. I can't." "You know what? I'm tired of your excuses. You millennials think you can just take a day off whenever you feel like it. When I was your age, I worked through pneumonia." "This isn't an excuse, I'm genuinely." "Save it. If you're not here in 2 hours, don't bother coming back at all." And he hung up. I sat there in my bed, stunned, sweat-soaked pajamas clinging to my skin, wondering if he was serious. But I knew Dalton. He was always serious. Dalton Grieves was the kind of manager who measured his worth by how many hours he stayed in the office and expected everyone else to do the same. He bragged about never taking vacation days. He sent emails at 2 a.m. and expected responses by morning. He once told a colleague who was leaving early for his daughter's school play that family is important, but so is your career trajectory. I tried to stand up and immediately got dizzy. There was no way I could drive, let alone give a presentation. I texted him back. "Dalton, I physically cannot make it. I'm sorry, can someone else cover?" 5 minutes later my phone rang. It was Veronica from HR, Veronica Dunsworth. "Cordelia, I'm sorry to inform you that your employment with Meridian Tech Solutions has been terminated, effective immediately. You can pick up your personal belongings next week. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you." "Wait, what? Veronica, I'm sick, I have a fever. This is illegal. Your manager has documented a pattern of unreliability, and your refusal to attend today's critical meeting was the final incident. The decision is final. Goodbye, Cordelia." She hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process what had just happened. Fired for being sick after 6 years of exemplary work. The fever made everything feel surreal, like I was living in a nightmare. I spent the rest of that day and the next 3 in bed, alternating between chills and sweats, but now with the added weight of unemployment crushing my chest. By Sunday my fever finally broke, and that's when the anger set in. I started going through my work emails. I still had access because they hadn't shut down my account yet, and that's when I started noticing things, strange things I'd been too busy to pay attention to before. Expense reports from Dalton for client dinners at restaurants that didn't exist. Invoices from vendors I'd never heard of, timesheets showing hours billed to clients for work that our team definitely hadn't done. I'd seen some of these irregularities before, but had always assumed there was a reasonable explanation. Dalton was management after all. He had access to information I didn't. But now, with nothing but time and rage, I started digging deeper. I downloaded everything I could before my access was cut off. Every expense report, every invoice, every timesheet, every email chain. I organized it all into folders on my personal laptop. Then I started cross-referencing. The client dinner at Rosario Steakhouse. That restaurant had closed 2 years ago. The $3,500 dinner at Chateau Laurent. That place didn't even exist. I called the address and it was a dry cleaner. The invoices from Pinnacle Consulting Services for $45,000 worth of strategic advisory. The company wasn't registered in Colorado, had no website, and the address was a UPS store. I spent the entire week going through everything, and the picture became crystal clear. Dalton Grieves had been systematically defrauding Meridian Tech Solutions for at least 3 years, possibly longer. He was creating fake vendors, billing for services never rendered, and pocketing the money. Based on what I could document, he'd stolen at least $380,000, probably more. But here's the thing about corporate fraud. You can't just walk into the police station with a folder of printouts and expect them to do anything. These cases are complex, they require investigations, and most importantly, they require someone to care. So I got strategic. First, I filed a wrongful termination complaint with the Colorado Department of Labor. I documented everything: my spotless work record, my legitimate illness, Dalton's threatening text messages, the abrupt termination. I included a note that during my employment, I had become aware of potential financial irregularities that I felt obligated to report. Then I compiled a detailed report of every fraudulent transaction I could document. I created spreadsheets showing the patterns. I highlighted the fake vendors. I calculated the total amount stolen. It was 47 pages long, with another 200 pages of supporting documentation. I sent copies to 3 places: the SEC's Whistleblower Division, the FBI's White Collar Crime Unit, and Meridian's corporate headquarters in Chicago. Not to Dalton, obviously, but to the CFO, Yolanda Pritchard, and the head of internal audit, Marcus Weinfeld. And then I waited. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I started interviewing for new jobs, telling potential employers that I'd been downsized rather than fired. I was worried I'd made a huge mistake, that no one would take my allegations seriously, that I'd just look like a disgruntled former employee. Then, on a Tuesday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Thatch, this is Special Agent Jennifer Karlatova with the FBI. I'm calling regarding the documentation you submitted. Would you be available to meet this week?" My heart started racing. Yes, absolutely. How about tomorrow at 2 p.m., Federal Building downtown? I met with Agent Karlatova and her partner, Agent Raymond Lusk, for 3 hours. They asked me to walk them through everything I'd found. They asked about my role at Meridian, my relationship with Dalton, and why I'd decided to come forward. I told them the truth. He fired me for being sick, and while I was home, angry and hurt, I started noticing things that didn't add up. I couldn't let him get away with it. Agent Karlatova nodded. "Ms. Thatch, I want you to know that your documentation is some of the most thorough we've seen in a case like this. You've essentially done half our job for us." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we investigate. We'll be in touch if we need anything else from you. In the meantime, don't contact anyone at Meridian about this. Don't post about it on social media. Just sit tight." Sitting tight was torture, but I did it. 6 weeks later, I was at a coffee shop working on a freelance project when my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from former colleagues, LinkedIn messages, even an email from Veronica Dunsworth, the HR director who'd fired me. I opened my news app, and there it was: senior manager at Denver tech firm arrested for embezzlement and fraud. The article had Dalton's photo, his smug corporate headshot where he looked so proud of himself. The text said that Dalton Grieves, 49, had been arrested on multiple charges including wire fraud, embezzlement, and filing false tax returns. The investigation had revealed he'd stolen more than $400,000 from Meridian Tech Solutions over a 4-year period. My hands were shaking as I read. They'd found even more than I had. The article went on to say that Meridian was cooperating with authorities and had terminated Grieves's employment. There was a quote from Yolanda Pritchard, the CFO: "We take these allegations extremely seriously and are committed to full transparency and cooperation with law enforcement." My phone rang. It was Veronica Dunsworth. "Cordelia, I owe you an apology. We had no idea what was going on. Dalton had falsified documents about your performance and we trusted his word. We'd like to offer you your position back with back pay for the time you were terminated and—" "No," I said. "I'm sorry. No, I don't want my job back. You fired me for being sick, Veronica. You didn't even question it. You took the word of a man who was literally stealing from the company and threw me away like garbage." "Cordelia, I understand you're upset, but nothing. Email me the back pay details. That's all I want from Meridian." I hung up. Over the next few weeks, more details emerged. The FBI had found that Dalton wasn't just stealing from Meridian, he'd been running similar schemes at his previous 2 employers. He'd perfected the art of creating fake vendors, approving his own fraudulent invoices, and hiding the trail just well enough that no one looked too closely, until someone did. He'd used the money to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford on his salary, a vacation home in Scottsdale, a boat, private school tuition for his kids, expensive cars, all of it paid for with stolen money. The criminal case moved forward. I was contacted by federal prosecutors and told I might need to testify, though they didn't think it would go to trial. Dalton's lawyers were negotiating a plea deal. And that's when things got even more interesting. Marcus Weinfeld from Meridian's internal audit team reached out to me. "Miss Thatch, I wanted you to know that our investigation found that you'd actually tried to raise concerns about some of these irregularities about 8 months ago. Do you remember that?" I did, vaguely. I'd sent an email to Dalton asking about a vendor I couldn't verify. He told me it was handled by a different department and to focus on my own work. "Yes, I remember. He never forwarded your concerns to anyone. In fact, he deleted your email and then falsified your performance review that quarter, claiming you were creating unnecessary complications and not a team player. That review was part of the documentation he used to justify your termination." My blood ran cold. He hadn't just fired me for being sick. He'd been planning to get rid of me because I was getting too close to discovering his fraud. "There's something else," Marcus continued. "We found that 3 other employees who'd been terminated in the past 2 years had also raised questions about financial irregularities. Dalton got rid of anyone who might expose him. The scope of his corruption was breathtaking. He'd built an entire system to protect his theft, and he'd destroyed careers to maintain it. In August, 5 months after I was fired, Dalton Grieves pleaded guilty to 7 federal charges. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $427,000 in restitution. He forfeited his vacation home, his boat, and most of his other assets. I wasn't there for the sentencing, but Agent Karlatova called me afterward. "I thought you'd want to know. During the sentencing, the judge specifically mentioned your documentation and your courage in coming forward. He said that without whistleblowers like you, people like Grieves would continue to destroy lives and steal with impunity." I cried when she told me that, not sad tears, relief tears, validation tears. But the story doesn't quite end there. 2 months after Dalton's sentencing, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the SEC's whistleblower program. Because I'd reported the fraud through their system and my information had led to a successful enforcement action, I was entitled to a whistleblower award. The check was for $63,000. I stared at it for a long time. It felt surreal. I'd reported Dalton because it was the right thing to do, because I was angry, because I wanted justice. The money had never been the point. But you know what? I took it. I paid off my student loans. I put a down payment on a small condo. And I donated $10,000 to a legal aid organization that helps workers fight wrongful termination. As for my career, I eventually found a position at a different company, one with actual ethics and a manager who told me on my first day, "If you're sick, stay home. We'd rather you take care of yourself than burn out or get everyone else sick." Imagine that. Sometimes people ask me if I feel guilty about what happened to Dalton, if I think 8 years is too harsh, if I ever regret reporting him. And my answer is always the same: no, not even a little bit. Dalton Grieves fired me for having a fever. He destroyed my livelihood because I had the audacity to be human, to be sick, to need a day to recover. He did it not out of business necessity, but because I was becoming a threat to his criminal enterprise. He made a choice that day, and so did I. He chose to value his own greed over ethics, over his employees, over the law. I chose to fight back. The funny thing about revenge is that sometimes you don't even have to do much. Sometimes you just have to shine a light on the truth and let the consequences unfold naturally. Dalton built his own prison, brick by brick, fraudulent invoice by fraudulent invoice. I just held up a mirror and made sure the right people could see what he'd been doing. Would I have discovered all this if he hadn't fired me? Probably not. I was too busy doing my job, trusting that the people above me were doing theirs. Getting fired gave me the time, the motivation, and the clarity to see what had been hiding in plain sight all along. So yeah, Dalton Grieves fired me for taking a sick day. Now he's serving 8 years in federal prison. And me, I'm doing just fine. Better than fine, actually. I sleep well at night knowing that I stood up for what was right, that I protected future employees from his abuse, and that I showed him that some people can't be silenced just because you take away their job title. Some people keep their integrity no matter what. And in the end, integrity is worth more than any amount of money, stolen or otherwise. My name is Cordelia Thatch, and this is what happens when you underestimate someone just because they had the flu. Karma doesn't forget, and neither do I.